welcome to the box of textures. This is MidiStep, brand new from 4Pockets. 4Pockets. It's kind of, I didn't quite get it at first. It took a few plays for me to actually figure this out. But once I did, it was pretty dang amazing. So I'm in AUM with 2 instances of MidiStep and also Euclidean, also made by 4Pockets. So let's walk through this. This is MidiStep. We're playing an instance of ISEM. It's kind of my go-to for bleeps and bloops for sequencers for some reason. But let's take a look at MidiStep. So the red row is the notes. The green row is the octaves. And the blue row, actually let me change that. The blue row is, they call it sequencer, but you have a bunch of different sequencers: velocity, gate, divider, repeat, and delay. For this sequence, or for this purpose, we're using delay, so that is the violet/pink row. So I'm going to move all these down with my finger. You can't see that on the screen, but it's easier than doing it with the mouse. So here, let me click play. It's all Fs. So there's 9, you have up to 16 notes. I set the sequence length for the notes to 9. And the green row, the octaves, I've set it to 8. And the pink row for the divider, I've set to 10. That way they're not completely in step. They'll vary a lot more than if they were all 8, say. So that's one thing. The notes, you can see, are all F, and the octaves, most of the 8 steps are the main 0 octave. One of the steps is -1, so it's an octave down, and one of the steps is +1, so it's an octave up. So we're getting different. Here, let me turn off random on these. Ignore that for now. So let's rewind. What we have now are 9 Fs, and the second note out of 8 is an octave lower, and the 6th note out of 8 is an octave higher, and the 3rd note out of 10, dividing is basically ratcheting. So I've divided that step into 2, but I could 3, I don't know, 3 ratchets just seems rather useless to me, unless you're going very slow. Let me back off of that distinct statement there. So that's fine, but you know, it's been a bunch of repeats, And even though 9 steps for notes, 8 steps for octave, and 10 steps for the ratchets are phasing back and forth, so it's a little interesting, but what I do is I've enabled random jump on the octaves, so now you don't know where you'll get the different octaves. And I did the same for the ratchets. So every now and then, so now it's more interesting. But I don't have that on for the notes. It's still Fs. So that is where, let me stop this. That is where Euclidean comes in. So I think it's every 4 passes. Here it comes. So every time it's going to come around, when Euclidean hits the note I've set, it triggers MidiStep to randomize the notes. So now we're fully randomized. Every 4 times through, the note pattern changes, and you randomly get octaves and ratchets. By the way, I've picked, this is the key of F, and it's one of the Japanese scales, which I tend to favor. But there's a million scales. I mean, I haven't tried hardly any of them, but there's a billion of them. So let's take a slightly closer look. I should try to end those phrases on the last note so it's not hanging in midair like that. So here's Euclidean. What Euclidean does, I'm only using sequence A. You get up to 4 sequences. So there are 18 steps and 18 events. 18 is twice 9. So that way it cycles through on an even number of times. So every time it hits the cycle, it should be on note 1 of the note sequence. So every time Euclidean cycles around, it sends out a C4 on each of the 2 nodes that are highlighted. So one of those C4s tells MidiStep to randomize the notes, and the other one, the second one, tells it to stop randomizing the notes. So let's take a look at the settings in AUM to get that done. So this is MidiStep that I have on. Here's the settings, and let's find it. Here we go. Randomize notes, on, off. So it's channel 1, which matches what Euclidean is set for, and the note is C4. So every time it hears a C4, every time AUM hears a C4, it says, what am I going to do with it? And it says, okay, I'm supposed to randomize the notes. So it's kind of a unique combination between several sequencers and AUM listening for things to happen. It's pretty amazing. So let's take a look at this one. What we're doing is this is 7 steps, and that is controlling both Pippa and Discovery. So you notice in this instance of MidiStep, it's 9 steps long to match the first MidiStep, and the first 7 are tied together. So what's going to happen is basically it's going to hit the notes and hold them. And also, hang on, you can't see that because I have to make the window bigger. There's the chord editor. So it's set up for complexity is 2. That means it's a 2-note chord, and it's in the same scale as the other instance of MidiStep. So let's set everything back to the way it was. And let us hit go. So both sequencers, both MIDI steps, since I have 3 sequencers, both MIDI steps are synchronized. One is running at half the speed of the other. If you look at the small one, you can see that the notes are quarter notes, whereas the larger one is 1/8 notes. So it's half the speed or double the speed, depending on how you look at it. So here's what's going on. When you hit the top of Euclidean, bang, that triggers a new randomization of the notes. And in the meantime, the other MIDI step is playing randomized chords in time with the first MidiStep sequencer. So basically, with just these 2 sequencers and Euclidean controlling the randomization of the notes in the first one, you get totally generative music in the given scale that I have chosen. This could play for hours, and it's never going to repeat other than accidentally. And this is only 2 things going on. So there's no reason you can't have, 53 channels of instruments and all different rules based on how often events happen in Euclidean, say, to trigger all different events from the other sequencers. So you can do normal stuff with MidiStep, 8-note sequences or 16-note sequences. You can write whole songs in it because each instance of MidiStep has 16 different patterns. So you can have, verse, chorus, bridge, verse 2, etc. There's a billion things you can do with it. And in a way, this is only scratching the surface, but I think it's a good demonstration of how easily and you can take it and how far you can go with it. So 2 MIDI steps and a Euclidean providing some randomness. And you get a hauntingly beautiful generated sequence. Pippa is providing the choir low in the backgrounds, and the swirling pad is Discovery. Might as well show ISEM as well for my pulses. Thanks for listening and watching.